Hello, welcome to this presentation by me, Remington Bram, and Cindy Ortiz. We're going to be looking at Dracula through a Marxist lens. We're going to be analyzing Bram Stoker's Dracula using the Marxist literary theory. So a brief overview of what we're going to be doing. We're going to sort of look at the Marxist literary theory and Marxism in general, and then we're going to go into a little bit more detail with those two. We're going to assess how to apply those to Dracula in particular, or in general, really. And then we're actually going to apply them to Stoker's novel. And then we'll take a step back and assess the utility of both Stoker's Dracula novel and of Marxist literary theory, and of using Marxist literary theory to understand Dracula. And then, of course, we're excited. We couldn't have this presentation on Marxist literary theory without a cursory slide about Marx. So here he is, there he is, German philosopher, critic of political economy, economist, historian, sociologist, you can read the rest, mostly known for the origin of Marxism. What is Marxism? Well, really excellent quote here. Marxism. Marx argued that all mental, ideological systems are products of real social and economic existence. So what does this mean? This means that all of the ways that we think and all of the things that humans in society create with their minds, it's all a result of the actual living situation that they're in. So this is a bit unique. This is in contrast with a lot of other philosophies that saw it as the other way around, as the way that you live being impacted by the way that you think. This instead is saying that the way that you think is impacted by the way that you live or the conditions in which you live. So this is a bit of that whole nature versus nurture thing. And now Marxist literary theory, another really wonderful quote here. Marxist literary theory is a thing in which you see the text as somehow in relation to economic conditions of the time. So what's the economic conditions? What's my text? How are those jiving with each other? How are they mutually influencing one another? What information can I glean about the text from the economy? What information can I glean about the economy and social conditions from the text? So it's just a literary theory that Marxists use. Using this theory doesn't necessarily make you Marxist or communist or anything. It's just a really useful tool. So again, kind of the connection here is that according to Marxism, reality, our real world, our living conditions, determines the way that we think. And so according to Marxist literary theory, you can use the one to learn about the other because they have this direct relationship. You can use the text to learn about the economy and society. Society and economy can tell you stuff about the text. Carrying on, so a really big central tenet of Marxist literary theory and of Marxism is this connection between the base and the superstructure. And the idea is that the base influences and results in a given superstructure. What is the base? The base is our reality. It's our economic and social reality, the means of production, the economic structure, etc. Our superstructure is ideology, art, literature, laws, philosophy, morality, religion, thought, all of these social constructs, things that come from our human mind. They're the result of our living conditions. A common example would be like, this was actually from that video that we watched in class. You have a agricultural society. Well, maybe your concepts of God and deities are going to be sort of based in that. So like, Judaism comes from this sheep herding society, you could almost say. So concepts of God are that he's like a shepherd. Anyways, carrying on. Another really big important thing is this concept of hegemony that was presented by Antonio Gramsci. He was an important Italian Marxist literary theorist. He was also the leader of the Italian Communist Party for a while, lots of stuff. So this is all about who is in power, what are the groups in power that are in play. So you've got the dominant hegemony right here in the middle. This is the current group in power who is calling the shots and stuff. Before that, we have the residual hegemony, the people who used to be in power. We also have the revolutionary hegemony, the people who are seeking power, the ones who are trying to overthrow the current system and make a new system. Underneath all of this, both literally and figuratively, we have the subaltern, which is a group that has no power. They're exploited. They have no class consciousness. So, this is kind of like the, maybe the working class or a group that's subjected to slavery or just not even really part of the picture. They're just used and brushed aside. Perhaps in time, they may gain that class consciousness and become the revolutionary, remains to be seen. Common example of this would be the feudal system. So, sorry, let me back up. A common way to think of this is in today, our dominant hegemony is sort of this capitalist society, the people in power, it's executives, it's these CEOs running these giant corporations. The residual hegemony, well, it's kind of like a feudal system a long time ago. So there's that. Possibly there's still royalty hanging out around. Revolutionary people trying to overthrow this current system. So, communist revolutionaries, et cetera, et cetera. Subaltern, we kind of talked about that a little bit already. So literature can be considered in terms of these hegemonies. Marx himself generally considered all literature just to be propaganda from the dominant hegemony. Gramsci and Raymond Williams, later Marxists, kind of got a more nuanced view, saying, well, actually, it can come from any of these groups. It can be propaganda from any of them. And it's just sort of depicting how do these groups want to paint the world. So a dominant hegemony is going to put out a picture that paints itself as really wonderful. Revolutionary hegemony is going to put out literature that's saying, dominant hegemony is trash. We want to build something better, something new. And it can comment and describe, literature can comment and describe relations between these various hegemonies as well. Can't move on with a note, without a note on, and I'm going to butcher this, it's Klassivast. This is a concept proposed by Raymond Williams. It sort of takes literature and it steps us out of the hegemony view and considers that really literature has this other quality in which it just reflects reality. Writing reflects the current socioeconomic realities of the time. Whoever it's coming from, it has this realistic quality. As a result of that, it ends up being inherently in the interest of the working class because it will show the struggles of the working class. Whoever it's coming from, whatever it's going to say, you can look into it and find all of this other information. Alrighty, and before we move on, history and background of this critical approach, just to make sure we didn't miss anything. How and why was it founded? So we had Karl Marx coming up with all these new ideas, revolutionary idea of Marxism. It's a philosophy that aims to not only describe the world, but to change the world. And to do all this, we got to analyze literature, find out what's happening, so we can look at literature and learn about the economy, find these injustices in class relations, and do something about them. We also had Antonio Gramsci coming up with this hegemony idea, Raymond Williams giving lots of nuance to things in the 20th century, lots of other important people. Benefits, it tells us sort of what's going on with the economy and the people they're in and classes and how all of that is influencing the way that people perceive reality and that people think. So this is really beneficial, and it goes way beyond just politics and Marxism. And that's sort of the legacy of the Marxist literary theory, is that it birthed all of these other literary theories and ways of viewing literature. Now that we're realizing that the way that people think comes from the world that they live in, and building this connection between literature and the world, it opens up all these other avenues for different critical theories. And in transition, this really wonderful quote from Karl Marx: "Capital is dead labor, which vampire-like lives only by sucking living labor, and lives more the more labor it sucks." And so already we're getting geared up to make connections with Stoker's novel, Dracula. So how does one apply all of this to Dracula? Here's going to be our general approach. We're going to look at an aspect. We're going to ask some questions about it, look at an aspect of the novel, mind you, ask some questions about it. And then we're going to consider our answers in terms of the economic and social reality, the connection between the base and the superstructure, hegemony, how are all these hegemonies relating, which hegemony does this seem to be coming from? And then we're going to step back and reflect on the new insights that we gain into the novel. Don't forget about the base, aka the economic and social reality. So Dracula, this is written in the late 1800s. So this is Victorian England. England is a massive colonial power and economy. Industrialization is going on. Class divisions are strong. There's rampant poverty down here at the working class and kind of below the working class. People don't have work. And driving all of this, we have this Protestant work ethic, which is almost credited with creating capitalism or the success thereof, and utilitarianism, these ideas that you work hard because it's the right thing to do and you get brownie points with man upstairs. All right, so let's check out Dracula as a character and antagonist of this novel. So what's Dracula's mission? Dracula is coming here to colonize England. He wants to kind of take over, take advantage of the natives, and do some business back home. What is England's economy based on? Well, funny enough, colonialism. England is going out and colonizing people and taking advantage of them to help the folks back home. So what does this say about the text? Well, really interestingly, now we're seeing Dracula as kind of an embodiment of England's colonialism. We've flipped the mirror around. Now Dracula is wreaking upon them the same terror that they have wrought on other nations. How does this change the text? Like I said, it makes you reflect on the colonial system of economy that requires the exploitation of other nations to function. Now this isn't just a novel about this scary boogeyman. This is a novel that makes us think about certain economic systems and the results that come from them. I mean, just thinking about this now, vampirism doesn't ever go away. Once you're infected with this, it stays with you forever. And so what does that say about the effects of colonialism? As soon as these colonial powers come in and wreak this destruction, these places are destroyed. This curse of vampirism lingers with them forever. Wow, crazy. We just found something new about the text. Moving on, the narrative of the Russian sea captain. This is probably the most rich one if anyone's looking for stoking on the revolution. So we've got this Russian sea captain. He dies for literal boxes of dirt. He's so dedicated to his job. And then he's lauded for his dedication. There's this big procession ceremony. Everyone is so moved by this captain who was so determined to carry out his duty. So what actually killed him? Well, kind of it was Dracula causing this big storm. But let's take a step back, think about our social and economic reality. We've got this Protestant work ethic. He's so determined to do his job. He could have thrown the boxes overboard. He knew there was an issue with them. He could have turned around, gone to port sooner. He could have jumped off and swam away, maybe survived, but it's his dedication to the system that ultimately kills him. And it's this expectation of him. It's the captain's duty, that he should go to these ends, and it sort of carries on to all other members of the working class, that this is what's expected of them. So what does it say about the text? Well, in a way, we're realizing now that the economic system is itself vampiric. It's draining the lives out of these people, bleeding them to death in the case of this Russian sea captain. um, and ironically, Dracula, he's scary because he's coming here to bring vampirism. But now, as we look at this in the context of the economy, we're realizing vampirism's already here, folks. Like, we already have this system and this middle class, this working class, or not working class, this middle class and upper class that is feeding off of these lower classes, expecting them to work to death, just for their benefit, to move their boxes of dirt. So what really do we have to fear from Dracula when this is what we're already living with? Alternately, if you're a member of the middle class or of the upper class, you're looking back at yourself now and saying, hot damn, I am the vampire. So how does this change the text? We've turned it again into a mirror, and we're not talking about just Dracula, the scary vampire. We're now talking about what is an ethical work ethic to expect. We've sort of changed what we're looking at. It makes you question what is okay to expect. All right, moving on really quick because we're probably already running out of time. Treatment of Renfield, similar to the other things. How's he treated by various characters? He was abused by pretty much everyone. Dracula was like, hey, I need some stuff. And Renfield's like, yes, my master. Gives him what he wants. And then Dracula kills him. Whoop-de-doo. Other characters, they kind of care for him. Not really. No, they don't. They're really ambivalent about him. But as soon as he has something to give them, he has information about Mina, that maybe she's being used. They're all ears and they're trying to save his life. And then once Renfield's done talking, they just sort of dip out and leave him to die. And then he does die. And then they're like, oh, well, we could probably make a pretty easy alibi. Let's just say he fell out of bed. Nobody's going to care. Whoa, that's dark. That's pretty terrible. It's kind of a lot like how Dracula was treating him. These middle and upper class characters care nothing for Renfield, who in a way sort of represents the subaltern, this group with no class consciousness, just exploited by everyone. Dracula uses him. The good guys use him. So what does this say about class divisions? Again, the people in the upper class, they just use the people underneath them. What does this say about the text? Well, again, we're worried about vampires coming here. Turns out we've already got vampires. The people in the middle and upper classes are already just using people, and they have no regard for human life at all. They just leave Renfield to die. How does this change the text? Again, now we're looking at things in terms of classes. They feared that they would be turned into vampires. Turns out they already are vampires. It makes it about class divisions. It also makes you reflect on your role in these vampiric relations. Am I a member of the middle or upper class? Am I treating the people underneath me like this? Is this what I'm doing? Am I the vampire in this situation? Let's try to not do that. Big hegemony picture. Super text. I just made this word up. Maybe it's actually a word. What's kind of the surface level story? We have Dracula. He represents the residual hegemony. He was a count, a prince, and he's coming over here. We have the good guys. That's a dominant hegemony. They're all middle, upper class, good capitalist citizens. They're all very upstanding. Whoop-de-doo. And they defeat the evil invading prince. So whoop-de-doo, capitalism. On a level, this is just a very much propaganda story from the dominant hegemony saying, we're awesome. We're protecting you and saving you. Subtext, we can look at Renfield, the maids. They also get pretty abused, and others. They're kind of like the subaltern. These people that are really ignored, mistreated, used, exploited. And in a way, we're sort of showing how they're used by everyone and abused by everyone. So possibly, whether it's intentional or not, we have a little bit of this revolutionary vibe going on, that we're sort of showing these issues. Alternately, that could be a quality of the Klassivast. And sort of regardless of what propaganda this is, we do always have this quality of Klassivast, that whatever the author is coming from, this text shows the economic reality of the time and can be used to gain insight into the economic reality. We've already talked about that a lot. So moving on, the utility of Dracula and a Marxist reading thereof. So Marxist reading, we find all these new themes that we hadn't seen before. We get a lot more insight. It informs us about the time and culture of the writing. Like, we learn a lot about Victorian society, how they viewed one another, all this sort of stuff. It provokes thought and critical reflection. It makes us think about the economic world that we occupy, that we endorse. It makes us think about our own role in this situation. All of these things, and Dracula itself has so many characters and parts to it that can be used to help us understand, these connections between the base and the superstructure. What is the world around us? How does that impact the way that we think? What can be done to change these for the better? are works cited, all of these wonderful people. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. Don't be a vampire. Any questions, reach out to us on Canvas. Thanks so much, folks, and take care.